Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course World History, and today we're going to be talking about imperialism in China.
Mr. Green, what exactly is imperialism?
For the past, do you not know what Wikipedia is? Imperialism is defined by Wikipedia as, quote, an action that involves a nation extending its power by the acquisition of inhabited territory. Basically, it's the action of a country taking over land for economic, political, religious, or ideological reasons. Actually, do people still cite Wikipedia? I heard it's becoming less and less of a trustworthy source. I wonder why, though, since it has lots of references and citations. English teachers. By the way, this script was written in Comic Sans. Before imperialism came, China was mainly self-sufficient with a strong agriculture and metal industry. It was not interested in trade and interaction with other countries.
When European nations arrived in China, the majority of trade was conducted in Guangzhou, and the trade favored the Chinese. In an effort to balance trade, Britain began smuggling in opium, an addictive narcotic. According to ABC Clio, in 2018, an estimated 1% of the population was addicted to the dangerous drug. The Chinese government attempted to stop the trade of opium, which resulted in an Opium War, where an advanced British Navy ship defeated the slow Chinese ships. The war concluded with the Treaty of Nanjing, where Hong Kong was ceded to Britain. In addition to that, ABC Clio article writes, the Treaty of Nanjing, 1842, resulted in several humiliations for the Chinese, one of which was China's trade and customs, which were to be overseen by British officials, whose ability to erect tariffs was outlawed, which means they couldn't export these. With this, the emperor was forced to accept European ambassadors to the court of the Qin dynasty. The loss of the war gave Britain a sphere of influence in China and took control of Hong Kong. Let's go to the thought bubble. Although Hong Kong returned to Chinese rule when Britain's 99-year lease expired in 1997, the island itself has retained cultural characteristics that reflect the legacy of its British past. Hong Kong is a special administrative region in Southeast China. After Britain gained control and influence over the region, it has changed and progressed differently than the rest of China. A natural harbor, Hong Kong was the center of trade between the West and China. Britain's influence on Hong Kong has been demonstrated through its architecture, fashion, and other social trends. China resumed governance of Hong Kong in 1997. The government has adopted the bilingual? Okay. The biliterate and trilingual policy. This means that two official languages of Hong Kong are Chinese and English. Cantonese is accepted as a default Chinese language, whilst Mandarin and Putonghua are also used. Hong Kong has had recent political clashes between China over ruling. China dislikes Hong Kong's democratic government and tries to increase its power and control over the region. It is another impact of British imperialism on China today. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Internal problems continued in China, with starvation and rebellions happening throughout. One significant rebellion was the Taiping Rebellion, led by Hong Xiuquan. Why? The Chinese government put it down with the help of European soldiers, but it resulted in 20 million casualties. Another group also formed called the Boxers, who are the anti-Western and anti-Christians. Trying to remove Westerners from Chinese power, they surrounded Beijing during the Boxers' rebellion. The rebellion was another failure, but it demonstrated the need for reform as resentment increases. It's already time for the open letter, okay. It's already time for the open letter.
An open letter to Empress Cixi. But first, let's see what's in the secret compartment.
Mercury!
This is the Chinese. Dear Empress Cixi, I congratulate you on being one of China's most influential and powerful women figures of your time. Your son was the only heir of the emperor. After he died, you staged a coup to take the power for yourself. You even poisoned your own adopted son after he plotted to kill you. During your rule, you had a tough situation to deal with. Western pressures, along with the Taiping Rebellion, created a need for stabilization in China. You remained strong in affirming traditional beliefs and systems, but you did support modernization and education reforms. Those turned out to be less successful than hoped, and after reversing your son's 100 days reform, your rule ended without the problem solved. China was still weak and the West was still strong. Best wishes, John Green. Following the rebellions in China.
Following the rebellions in China, two main anti-Western groups began to emerge. They were the nationalists led by Sun Yat-sen, who pushed for modernization and a republic of China. The other group was the communists led by Mao Zedong, who were influenced by the Soviets to make China communist. The two groups eventually caused a civil war in China. The communists were outnumbered, so they decided to retreat to northern China, where they were stronger. Their 9,000-kilometer retreat was known as a Long March, a difficult and harsh journey that ended with only 1 of 10 survivors. Through the struggles of the Civil War, China faced an enemy from outside, Japan. Seeing China as weak, Japan attempted to invade China. The Civil War was temporarily stopped and the two groups united in an effort against Japan. After the war ended, the Civil War resumed. China by now has been suffering for a while and was very poor. Many of these poor sympathized with Mao, and that gave them the edge to win against the nationalists. The nationalists were forced back into Taiwan. After Mao went into power, China underwent two major revolutions. First was the Communist Revolution. Land and industries were taken by the government and communes were created. These new policies worsened China's economy as production decreased. Then there was the Cultural Revolution, where Mao ordered a cleansing of Western influences in China. Teens and students, like us, were recruited in the Red Guard to shut down institutions of inequality and Western influences such as schools and libraries. The Cultural Revolution caused more harm into China's society and economy. Seen as ineffective, later policies would gradually reverse the effects and modernize China. Today, China is a global hegemon with the second largest economy. The impacts of imperialism still remain. One recent Chinese initiative called the Belt and Road Project aims to invest in infrastructure in Asia and Africa. It shows China's attempt to show influence in other countries. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Crash Course is produced and directed by us. The project manager and associate producer is Henry Jia.
Our research coordinator and script supervisor is Henry Lin.
The timeline director and the storyboard director is Ronald Wang.
Our presentation and supervisor and graphics team is Justin Chung.
Last week's phrase of the week was Debon the Hater. If you want to hate on this week's phrase of the week or suggest future ones, you can do so in the comments, where you can also ask questions about today's video that will be hated on by a team of historians.
If you like Crash Course, make sure you subscribe.
Thanks for watching, and I have to say in my hometown, don't let the anger sink your grave! Oh, it's already time for the open letter?